Welcome to the Expedition Beyond playthrough. In this demo, I'll walk through some core gameplay mechanics. Let's take a look at the Quick Start. I'm using Tabletop Simulator for these demos, so here's a big shout out to them for this awesome tool. For this demo, we'll create 3 characters. Check out the character creation video for more information. Here are the 3 characters I've selected to go on this expedition. Nim's attribute cards are placed here, and the tokens that he's starting with are here. Finally, his play cards. When combined, these cards form the character, define their ability to tackle threats and recover. We'll be hunting for treasure in this expedition. This card shows any special rules or starting requirements. In this case, we're instructed to create a travel deck. A travel deck is a random stack of setting cards. We're going to split out 8 settings that represent our travels as we search for treasures. I'm also pretty bad at using Tabletop Simulator, so I'll just fumble around for a bit. Stacking and splitting decks is easier with real cards. Let's shuffle them again for good measure. When creating a travel deck, you want to make sure you shuffle the deck first. Let's take a look at the tokens we selected for Nim. When creating a new group, you'll select any 2 viable tokens for each character. The Rations token is useful for rest actions and takes up a utility slot, represented by a star. Nim's other token is the Action token. Many expeditions have a destination card. This one doesn't, and this expedition explicitly states one is not needed. More on that later or another video. We'll draw the top setting card from the travel deck to determine the setting. Buried corridors. This will bring us to one of the expedition goals. There are 3 waypoints on this setting, listed on the right side of the card. Interior encounter, tower encounter, and another interior encounter. When we take a look at the Curious Artifacts card, we see that when we arrive at a tower waypoint, we'll check the reverse of this card. A tower encounter is the second waypoint in Buried Corridors. Actions that the party can take are listed on the left. First is the cost, and second is the outcome. We can exhaust a card with the Cunning glyph to gain a jewelry pendant. Let's shuffle the interior encounters and then draw one as the first waypoint. Okay, we have a Seething Magic Obelisk. Encounters have actions along the top left. Each character may only perform one action. Most of the time, your characters will perform the play card's action. Along the bottom are 2 threats. You need to match the glyphs and the threats to avoid negative outcomes. You do this by exhausting play cards and discarding tokens. A card's glyphs cannot be split between 2 threats. One threat requires magic and lore to avoid a shocked outcome, and the other requires magic and cunning to avoid despair. We have a card tailor-made for this despair threat. It bears both glyphs required. We'll flip it over to indicate it has been played. And then, to keep track of things for this demo, I'm going to drag myself up here to grab a green counter to show we canceled this despair threat. This leaves the other threat still in play. The number in the upper right of the encounter shows how many glyphs we need to match to count this encounter as successfully passed and to gain a reward shown in the center of the card. We will need to play at least 1 magic glyph and 1 lore glyph if we want to cancel the shocked peril. To gain the reward, we only need to play 1 more glyph though. If you remember, this encounter only requires 3 glyphs to minimally pass. However, we'll take the shock peril if we don't completely cancel it. So, we will play both the magic card here as well as discard a lore token. Now we discard the token and have cancelled both threats. Since we passed the encounter, we can gain a reward shown in the center of the encounter card. In this case, we're going to gain a lore token right back. Forming synergies like this is vital to success on an expedition. And again, my ineptitude at Tabletop Simulator shines. This encounter is complete. So now it's time to move on to the next waypoint, which is a tower waypoint. This indicates a special event based on the expedition. According to the Curious Artifacts quest card, anytime a tower waypoint is reached, we encounter the entry on the reverse of the card. So let's flip it on over and see what we have. That's pretty confusing at first, but rest assured it's actually straightforward. Let's first take a look at these green glyphs in the upper left. These two indicate that you'll get an automatic success if you play a card that bears one of these glyphs. To gain more successes, you'll roll dice. Play cards have a white or black die icon on them. This denotes their value in this type of contest. In this first contest, white dice need a value of 6 for a success, while black needs 4 or higher. For this contest, we'll want to exhaust cards with a black die on them, or a glyph that gives an automatic success, making it easier to avoid the negative effects and gain the loot draw in the last box of this first contest. You can get the automatic success only once per glyph on the quest card. Let's play Judo for a black die and Navigate for another black die and an automatic success. Since the Navigate play card has a matching glyph, we will cover one spot automatically. One automatic success and 2 dice won't be enough to get the reward, and we stand a high chance to take considerable damage with Affliction and Despair. We will look for cards with the black die icon or a lore glyph. Another Navigate glyph won't give us an automatic success, since we've already received that bonus. Let's play Fight 2 for a black die and then something with lore. This card is nice. It can be either a lore or Navigate glyph and also has a black die. Let's flip it, get ourselves another automatic success and one more black die. Okay, I think with that, we'll be good to make an attempt at this contest. Let's roll those dice and any 4 or higher will give us another success. Nice roll. We have 3 successes, which completely fills the contest. We avoid all negative effects and also gain a loot draw. Not all contests have the reward in the last box. You'll need to make some risk choices on the cards you play during this type of contest. Sometimes it's better to hold onto a play card and take some damage. Let's draw our loot. There are a few different types of loot you can get. Coins, tablets, jewelry, and artifacts. Artifacts are powerful items that can be carried on future expeditions, while coins, tablets, and jewelry are used to improve characters and purchase tokens. Now we can move on to the final waypoint of this setting. Let's draw an interior encounter and see what horrors we unearth. A tentacle monster. This is both a combat and an obstacle. As an obstacle, if we do not successfully pass it, by matching at least 5 glyphs, we'll have to find a new path. The Doom Peril is particularly dangerous on this encounter, since the quest tells us that any doom received kills a character. No matter what we do, we'll want to be sure to knock that threat out. Luckily, we can play any number of cards per character, so let's lock horns with this ancient monstrosity. Reviewing our play cards, our options feel a little limited. Both of the encounter's threats require the same glyphs. Action, Fight, Navigate. None of the cards we have are perfect matches, but Blitz plus Garsev's Fight token will allow us to cancel the Doom. I'll borrow this green counter to show we've gotten past the Doom threat. And next we'll figure out what cards to play to avoid the injury threat. While it isn't directly obvious, Expedition has a bit of a silent push-your-luck mechanic. Should you play a card now and hope you don't need it in the future, or take damage now to allow flexibility later? It looks like we should have enough of the right glyphs to cancel the injury threat as well. An action token here. A fight token here. And a lore token here gives us all we need to defeat that injury threat. Having passed this encounter, we'll get to pick a reward for the team. The options are a loot draw or a magic token. Since we're on this expedition to get loot, we'll select a loot draw. And when we reveal this loot, we see we have a sack of coins. These will be useful for outfitting the team for the next expedition. Characters also require resources to level up. The cost to level up is in the center of the character card. Now we've completed all of the waypoints on the buried chambers setting. That means we get to draw the next setting. And we'll make some room here for the Dusty Tomb encounters. This has 3 interior encounters. It also has 3 actions that the party can take between encounters. The first is a rest action, costing a provisions or rations. The second is a loot draw by playing a card with a fight glyph, and finally, converting a magic glyph into an action token. We'll flip the rations card to show that we have one more use of this token, and we'll perform a rest action. Exhausted cards have a cost in the lower left. Navigate has no cost, so we can flip it. Judo requires at least 1 body point, which we have. On Garciv, we need 1 body point for fight, and Holistic needs 1 mind. Both of which we have available, so we can refresh them. For Taina, Magic 2 requires 1 spirit, and Blitz requires an additional 1 of each attribute, while Worldly has no cost. To refresh all of her cards, she'll need 2 spirit and 1 mind, which she has. Now that our rest is complete and our characters are back at full strength, we can draw the next encounter. Well, this is pretty bad. The Dusty Tomb setting has an effect that specters and undead are difficult. So, we'll have to add those 2 glyphs in the yellow section on the right when attempting to defeat threats. We're going to have to think about how many cards we want to play and decide if we choose to take damage. This card isn't an obstacle, so we only need to consider the threats. Nim can handle the disadvantage threat by playing 2 cards, Seasoned and Lore. That gives us enough matched glyphs to cancel one of the perils. As for the shock peril, I think instead of playing 4 glyphs, we'll just take that damage and continue on our adventure. It might make resting later a little less efficient, but it seems like a good use of risk management. Okay, let's draw the next interior encounter. I seem to have forgotten to check out the setting special effect. It turns out that Cannibal Poltergeist won't be so easy. He has the Spectre tag, and the Dusty Tomb mentions that encounters with Spectre or Undead are difficult. That means we should have paid extra glyphs to knock out disadvantage. Luckily for us, Taina has Streetwise, which is a perfect card for the Poltergeist's extra glyphs. Creature of Wind. This is a potent adversary, but luckily he isn't undead or a specter. 3 difficulty glyphs would be pretty dangerous to the team. But, since we don't have to worry about that, we'll just figure out what cards we want to play. Turn off that music. Garcif will play Action 2 and Fight 1 to counter the Creature of Wind's injury threat. Much of the contemplation was whether or not to use Nim's Judo skill and Garcif's Fight 1, or to rely totally on Garcif for this threat. I didn't realize exactly how long I was simply looking at the board to determine the best path forward. That's one of the 2 threats countered. What are we going to do about the incapacitated threat? It requires a lore, a fight, and a cunning glyph. We have the glyphs we need across multiple cards, but we're also leaving 2 glyphs unused, so I'm not sure we'll want to do that. Especially because a couple of those cards have high refresh costs. I've decided to take incapacitated and not pass that threat. We can put it on any character. When a character is incapacitated, the only thing he can do is perform an action to remove that peril. This will effectively keep them out of the next fight, but additionally, if the team takes a rest action, they'll miss out on that, since they'll be recovering from the effect. We've gone through 2 encounters out of 3 in the Dusty Tomb. There are actions our party can take while here, except they've already performed the rest action, and you can't repeat settings actions. So it's time to draw the last encounter in this wicked place. I'm not sure, but I don't think it could be worse. The clamoring dead are a fierce foe, but doubly so in a tomb. When we check out the extra difficulty section, we see that threats have an additional 2 action glyphs and a cunning glyph. This team is no longer equipped to deal with such fearsome creatures. Nim wakes up from his stupor, probably to the sounds of scuttling skeletal feet and the drone of drums. We can remove the incapacitated peril from him, but he won't be able to do anything else. We're not going to be able to take on this overpowered enemy, so we'll have to assign the damage to our characters. Garcif is a tough hero, so he'll take the injury, leaving him with 2 body points. As for the affliction, we'll dig it out of the perils deck and assign it to Nim. I imagine Nim being shaken by the pawing bony hands of the undead, causing a nasty festering gash. Let's take a look at this interesting peril. Affliction covers a wide variety of effects, from bleeding to disease. It covers an in-hand play card. An in-hand play card is one that is not exhausted or sacrificed. Removing it will exhaust the card it sits on as well as add a weary peril to the character. Avoiding affliction is generally a good idea. We're going to cover Nim's Judo play card and hopefully we'll soon get a chance to rest. After having assigned the damage, this setting is done. We've encountered a specter, a creature of wind, and a veritable army of undead. What setting could be next? If I had my guess, something miserable is coming our way. Lo and behold, my tabletop simulator skills are again on full display. A little more cleaning up to get squared away for the next setting and we'll be good to go. We've found a simple goat path. There isn't much to this card, except a single overland encounter. It looks like life has given us a little bit of help. A sanctuary card. There are a few of these in the encounters decks, and this will give us the opportunity to perform a rest action. That's pretty fortuitous. All we'll need to do is play a couple of cunning glyphs after the rest action. I think we'll end this video here and prepare for the next episode.